Okay, so here's some food for thought. I was just watching some TikToks, and I came across a TikTok of a guy who's apparently doing his healing, as an adult. And with this, generation, the generation that we are in, we find ourselves in, those younger than me and those older than me are all finding ourselves needing to heal. And we're becoming very well aware of that. So it's wonderful. It's a movement, it's an evolution of our consciousness. As we become aware and we learn tools, we are learning to become whole and become free of restrictions and pain bodies that we carried through generations before us. It's wonderful that we're all doing this. So there's a little trend on TikTok where people are saying, like, my mom says it's okay if your mom says it's okay. Like that thing that kids say to themselves, I guess, when, or say to each other, rather, when there's like plans for a sleepover or something. My mom says you can sleep over my house if your mom says it's okay. That kind of thing. So different people are just using that statement to share random pieces of information, just as a funny, I guess. And so this particular guy says that his mom says it's okay if we heal all our trauma, even though she takes a fit and gets very defensive every time he does. If your mom says it's okay. And so if you look at the comments, yes, there's all kinds of people saying, like, yeah, I had to cut my mom off. It's so toxic. My mom gets defensive every time I try to grow. My mom doesn't support me growing. And I totally get it. There's definitely something that happens in dysfunctional relating families, where one of the family members tries to hold the other family member back. Sometimes just as simply as not supporting them, and sometimes it's even bigger than that, with sabotage and things like that. Just having a black sheep in the family is energetically burdensome. And so the whole thing feels very victimizing and unfair and all of that, and I totally get it. But I have the benefit of this other perspective that I've also had. So I've had that perspective at some point, just realizing that my family wasn't supportive of me, but knowing that it wasn't for me to take personal and that I was to use it as a mirror after I dealt with how I felt about it, which I did do, which freed me up to see another perspective, which was at some point, I had been complaining to my mother, blaming her perhaps even. This is much earlier on in my journey. And, she was just like, I'm really sorry I messed you guys up. Actually, I don't think I was even complaining to her about it when she said that. I believe she just came out with that one time. And then there's one view that says that's kind of a narcissistic tactic, but I don't think she was aware of it. Maybe subconsciously, but she was saying that she's so sorry. She feels so terrible for messing us up. Now I have 4 siblings, and that's what she was referring to when she said us. And I had done a lot of healing work at that point. So yes, this was definitely not when I was complaining about it. I had complained about it earlier on, though, to her credit. And she wasn't able to own it earlier on. And to be fair, it wasn't her job to own it earlier on. So then I did my healing work. I didn't have to blame her anymore. Then she came out with, she's so sorry for messing us all up, which was, in my eyes at that point, the perspective I was then in, was she was discrediting all the work I had done on myself to grow, and she was trying to label me with some sort of flawedness. And I didn't feel flawed. I felt perfectly fine, able to face challenges as they come, working on myself with the tools that I had gained. Um, there was nothing lacking in me. So her saying, that she's sorry she messed us all up, to me was quite rude. So do you see how that perspective I had was totally opposite of the other perspective we can be in about our parents? So we can either complain that they are trying to sabotage us and not support our growth, or we can complain when they try to take ownership of not being the parents that we needed. So do you see how both were kind of offensive? And I just felt like that was important to share because it's just a reminder how everything is just about perspective, and everything that's true, the opposite is also true. Like, you may want your parents to take blame for what they've done or what they haven't done, and it might not feel good if they take blame for what they've done or what they haven't done. It depends on what stage you're in and what perspective you're in, and is it really necessary to continue on the cycle of pointing our fingers outside of ourselves and finding someone to blame? I think it's reminiscent of the punishment and reward parenting paradigm that was modeled to us, where our parents actually were looking at us to find out if we needed to be punished or rewarded. And so now it's our habit to look for someone to punish or reward in any given experience. And when we are suffering the consequences of certain parenting experiences, we tend to want to punish or put that blame onto our parents, when actually our parents were doing their best. Even if your parents were the worst, it was the best they had. And we are part of an evolution. We are breaking cycles, and all the energy that we could use to blame and shame them and point our fingers and tell them how wrong they are, instead could be put towards our own healing and taking our own responsibility for every way we feel. So I don't want to say it's wrong for us to feel like we want to point the finger, but we can also own that feeling, feel all the feelings that go with it, be present with the feeling, understand why we have it, and then not stay there. We can move forward without having to carry the burden of a grudge towards our parents who literally were doing their best, but we could probably only see that after we've dealt with our own pain. Because before we deal with our own pain, we're only going to see through the lens of the pain that we carry. So it's also a fun experiment in thought to just think everything we think, the opposite is also true. So it's kind of perfect when we don't know. Everything that we know is really holding us back. For real. Not knowing is kind of a beautiful place to be, and if you can be comfortable with that and not be scared, which took practice for me, it really is great. It's like limitless possibilities exist in that space. And it doesn't mean you don't take action. I feel like, some people think, oh, divine timing, it will just come to me by some force of the universe when it's supposed to. No, that's not exactly how things happen. If something has been, if we've been inspired to something, we need to act on it. We get that inspiration without knowing. We get the inspiration from our intuition. That's our feminine receptive energy. And then we use our masculine energy to act on the inspiration we receive. And that's how it works. So I was inspired to record this, and then I took action on it. If I hadn't taken action on it, then we wouldn't have this video, and I wouldn't have shared these thoughts, and maybe that idea would go along to someone else who was able to share the thoughts. Maybe it wouldn't. This is a little bit of a ripple. It's a ripple that was created by an inspired thought, which was inspired by me having a receptive energy to the experience that I had in watching a TikTok video and realizing that my thoughts, in comparison to the thoughts being shared, revealed a way that energy could be balanced on a situation, which is an example that a lot of people will be experiencing at this time. Judging by the comments, quite a few are having to work through the resentments and the pain that they feel due to what they've realized is parenting methods that our parents chose to use. But our parents were doing their best. Those are the methods that were either passed on to them or the methods that they used in order to avoid what was passed on to them. Either way, they were as a result of whatever pain they were carrying. And when we do things from pain or from fear, the results correspond to that. So I do trust and know that anyone who is in that perspective is meant to have that perspective while they have it. So this isn't about shaming or blaming. It's just about sharing an option, expanding an awareness, giving a perspective that may be freeing. But it also doesn't mean that we should not honor how we feel from that other perspective first before we moved into a bigger awareness. We don't want to leave parts of us behind, and memories stay with us through our emotional body and our memory. So if we move our memory up through a solution without rescuing the emotional body who remembers the thing happening, then we're going to have a problem, and it's going to be harder to identify because we will think we have had it handled. So it's important not to bypass how we feel in the process of expanding our awareness. So what have you noticed about expanding your awareness around topics of shame, blame, looking at how you were parented, looking at how you choose to parent, looking at opposites, neutralizing energy, creating 0 point in the field? What do you think or feel when I say everything that's true, the opposite is also true? Can you see a couple places where that's true? Maybe you can look in an abstract way. Maybe you can't find the truth in it at all, and that's okay too. These are just experiments in thought, perspectives to try on. Take what is useful to you and leave the rest.